Anyway, it is 1:41 here on the Schilling Show, and we're talking with Rick Sincere, who is the chairman of the Charlottesville Electoral Board. He and the others there, and of course Sherry Iachetta, our registrar, do a fantastic job, often under a lot of pressure and under difficult circumstances in getting the polling places ready. If you've never worked there and seen what happens on election day or what leads up to it, you don't just show up and plug a machine in. There's a whole lot of things that have to be done in advance of that, and we're grateful that we have good public servants here working on this to make sure that everybody does have their right to vote. All right, at 1:42 we're going to come back, and there have been some major issues regarding state law, and this involves machinery that we vote on and things that we want to talk about to let people know so they're not surprised when they show up on election day and everything, or at least some things, have changed. We return in just a moment. 1:46 here on the Schilling Show. Thanks for joining us. We're heading into the final segment, and the phone number is 977-1070. If you have comments or questions for our guest, Rick Sincere, who is the chairman of the Charlottesville Electoral Board on the upcoming elections, we'd love to hear from you at 977-1070. All right, so there have been some changes in state law which are causing us to have to do something I don't think we necessarily planned on doing. We got new voting machines here in Charlottesville, the Hart E-Slate system. When did that happen?
The first time we used that was in the 2002 City Council election, which I think you would remember pretty well.
I do remember that very well, although I don't remember the machines, but I know that it was the time when they were there.
So we have used those machines in, I think, 10 elections since then. We were very proactive. A lot of people remember the hanging chads in Florida in 2000. And basically after that, well, we were using punch card machines, much like those in Florida in 2000. We had no problems in Charlottesville that year. We were proactive. We decided to go ahead and buy the new electronic voting equipment even before this became a major issue across the United States. And as far as we can tell, our voters in Charlottesville have been very happy with it. The machines work very well. They're easy to maintain. They're easy to store. But every once in a while, we need to add a couple of extra machines to the mix because we're expecting a higher voter turnout. In normal times, we would just go to a city like Falls Church or Alexandria, which uses the same machinery we do, and borrow a couple of their machines, or we might be able to rent them from the manufacturer, or if we're really in a bind, we might have to buy some new machines. Unfortunately, last year a new law was passed in Virginia that prohibits cities like Charlottesville or counties around Virginia from buying or acquiring any new direct record electronic devices, which is what we use in Charlottesville, the Hart E-Slate system.
Meaning something that doesn't leave a quote-unquote paper trail?
Right.
Is that what that means?
Well, it means it's like an ATM machine, or we don't use touchscreen machines in Charlottesville, but that's the best analogy. You touch a computer screen and it's direct recording electronic device, as opposed to an optical scan system which uses a paper where you fill in a blank or connect dots or something like that. Or just plain paper ballots or a punch card machine.
But the purpose of this law was so that there is a paper trail. I mean,
that's the ultimate.
Right.
The ultimate goal is that within the next 10 to 15 years, every jurisdiction in Virginia will change over to a system that uses paper in some sense.
So this is going to be problematic for us, because we have machines that are relatively new that we intended to last for, what, 10 or 15 years when they were
Perhaps
purchased?
as long as 20 years, yeah.
And all of a sudden they are essentially obsolete. We can still use them, but we couldn't repair one if one broke?
That's right. We couldn't, if something broke, if there was a flood in a storage area, we would not be able to replace them. That's according to an Attorney General's opinion, and the city attorney has said basically we can't rent, borrow, buy, or even retrofit old equipment to be new. But the good news is we had been planning in the long term to switch over to another system from Hart known as eScan, which is a digital scanning system that uses a paper ballot. And so the exciting news for Charlottesville voters is we are going to use both systems this year, November 4th, and people will have a choice. When they go into a polling place, they will check in as they normally do, and the election officer at the table will ask, do you prefer to vote on an electronic machine, or do you prefer to vote with a paper ballot using the digital scan device? And For me, as sort of an elections geek, I find this intriguing because this will be a real-world experiment in which we can determine public opinion as to whether voters prefer the electronic machines or the digital scan machines using a paper ballot. And I anticipate that there will be people looking at Charlottesville this year to find out what the results of that experiment are.
So if the experiment comes out that people like the Hart E-slate, the one that we have already, what do we do with that information?
Well, hopefully we can use that to go back to the General Assembly and say, let's repeal that law passed in 2007 that says we can't buy this kind of equipment.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you. Has the city included this in their legislative package? This is 2008. They obviously were aware of the law. Do you know if that was included in last year's legislative package?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. We could ask City Council to consider it.
Yeah.
The other possibility is that people will prefer the digital scan equipment using the paper ballot, which is actually quite flexible. You can put the paper in any direction, upside down. Every ballot has an individual barcode that indicates what precinct you're voting in, whether this is a federal-only ballot or for state offices too. Even if the paper is slightly folded or if there are stray marks on it, that does not affect your vote. The machines are programmed, however, to kick back the ballot if you make any mistakes, like vote for the same office twice, or if you forget to vote in a race. We're very lucky in this election. We only have 3 contests: President, Senate, and U.S. House of Representatives. It's a simple ballot. A year from now, that's not going to be the case. Next year, we will be voting for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, city council, House of Delegates, all of the constitutional offices, plus whatever types of ballot measures there might be to amend the state constitution.
Will any school board seats be up as well next
year? The
year?
school board will also be up next year. So we are going to have a very long ballot, and that might, when people are sitting and filling out ballots with a pen or a pencil, that may not be as easy as going to an e-slate machine and just clicking on some buttons. It'll be an interesting election in 2009.
Are there any precedents of localities using multiple forms of voting machines in the same election? It sounds rather unique to me.
It's not entirely unique. It's been tried in a few other places in Virginia, usually when there's a transition from one system to another. You also, in every precinct in the United States, you have to have an electronic voting machine for people who are visually disabled or otherwise can't use a paper ballot. So even if we've switched over to the e-scan system totally, we would keep one e-slate machine in every precinct so that people who are disabled can vote privately and with full confidence that their vote will be counted.
I'm always thinking of logistical things, and I'm thinking of a logistical question for you. If somebody comes in and says, I want to vote on, let's say, on the e-slate machine, and they decide that, and then there, for whatever reason, is a huge line, and they would have to wait a half an hour to use that machine, but the other one is available immediately. Can they be switched out, or once they make that decision, are they locked in? How does that going to work?
We haven't worked out all the procedures yet. We're going to be doing that over the next few weeks. That's a question that is on our minds, and as a matter of fact, we discussed it at our electoral board meeting on Tuesday. We're going to be having extensive training of all of our election officers, and these are the questions we're going to be addressing directly, and I expect that we'll have an answer for you in a couple of weeks.
Good. We want to do a follow-up. Let's go to line 1 and talk to John. John, welcome to the Schilling Show, and you're on with Rick Sincere.